This evening, we are thrilled to hear from one of our own congregational members. Dr. Erin Albert grew up in the warm, vibrant Jewish community of Miami Beach, Florida, where her family were devoted members of Temple Beth Shalom, a congregation that has had a huge impact on my life with Rabbi Glickstein and Rabbi Pomerantz and Rabbi Bob Davis, who hugely shaped my life. Her parents' deep involvement in the synagogue's leadership instilled in her from an early age an enduring value of a Jewish community and connection. Following in their father's footsteps, Erin and her brother spent their summers at URJ Camp Coleman, which this congregation knows quite well. And over the years, it became a second home. 9 summers as a camper, 4 as a counselor, and 2 as a unit head. That is a lot of not getting sleep over the summer, I'm just saying. And it shaped her identity and her Jewish leadership. At Tulane University, Erin deepened her connection to Jewish life through a minor in Jewish studies before earning her doctorate in counseling and sport psychology. And 3 years ago, work brought her to Charlotte, North Carolina, where she now serves local collegiate athletes as a sports psychologist. Soon after arriving, she joined Shalom Park in the Charlotte Pride Parade, her first local Jewish event, where she met Rabbi Erdheim. And that encounter became the spark of her involvement in creating Temple Bethel's Jam Young Adult Group, where she continues to serve on the leadership team, bringing her energy, her vision, and her love of community to her own generation and to a next generation. Erin, Dr. Albert, we are thrilled to invite you to our Bima.
It was the belief that I am enough, that I am worthy of love and pride just as I am. When I was first thinking of ideas for this speech, a friend suggested I share my coming out story. It was a good idea in theory, but my story is both brief and boring. My family was almost annoyingly nonchalant. I asked my mom later about her reaction, and she said, "B'Tselem Elohim, it doesn't matter." Like many in the LGBTQ+ community, I absolutely experienced that heart-pounding, stomach-in-my-throat anxiety when I first came out and said the words out loud to friends and family. Not because I was ever worried about being accepted, but because I was finally sharing pieces of myself with loved ones that I'd hidden for so long. I was raised in a Reform Jewish home. I observed major holidays, became a bat mitzvah, and was confirmed. As was noted, I attended a Jewish sleepaway camp for a whopping 15 summers. My dad was president of my synagogue while I was in high school. Both my parents served in leadership positions within the temple for most of my childhood. I didn't realize it back then, but these experiences and being surrounded by a strong Jewish community taught me what it can look like to be proud of my identity, to be unconditionally supported. Reform Judaism views the Torah as a living document and has adapted many Jewish traditions and practices to better fit into modern life. It's committed to the values of B'Tselem Elohim, Tikkun Olam, or repairing the world, and the spiritual practice of audacious hospitality, embracing Jewish diversity across race, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, and interfaith backgrounds. Part of my Jewish upbringing included learning our history, both religious and historical contexts. We learned to read Hebrew, studied biblical stories and teachings, and learned the journey of the Jewish people through the diaspora, navigating recurring oppression and attempts at destruction and annihilation. We were taught the importance of standing up for others who may be less privileged, because there are often so many times in Jewish history when we could have benefited from that same advocacy and allyship. There is a recurring message that appears throughout the Torah and Jewish teachings, exemplified by the passage, "You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Many of the lessons I learned as a Jewish child were centralized around this idea of showing up for others, as well as for ourselves. One of my favorite informal Jewish sayings, meant to describe many of our holidays, is "They tried to kill us, we won, let's eat." I love this saying not only because I do love to eat, but also because it's such a simple way to encourage celebration and pride in who we are and what has come before us. I often joke with my friends that my Jewish friends and my queer friends seem to never connect. They always seem to stay in separate circles. And while I wish I had more opportunities to share space with other queer Jews, I have consistently felt like I can show up as my full and intersectional self in either community. I haven't had to hide my queerness amongst my Jewish circles, nor have I had to hide my Judaism in my queer circles. I believe this is because I've been able to connect with a common set of core principles that goes beyond any one piece of my identity. Both Jewish and queer communities embrace the values of living authentically, questioning the norm, and advocating for and with others. In Judaism, for instance, we're taught to question everything, including God. My dad sometimes refers to himself as Jew-ish. Yes, he was president of the temple, but he's much less observant than my mom, who was raised in a significantly more religious home. And he somehow claims to still not know the words to prayers he has heard hundreds, if not thousands of times. He credits his deep involvement in the Jewish community to something his rabbi told him when he was a child. You don't have to believe in God to be Jewish. You don't even have to believe in God to be a rabbi. And that message was absolutely instrumental in my path to being the proud and engaged Jew that I am today. I was not just given permission, but actively encouraged to find my own definition of my Jewish identity, to fully accept and support other Jews who find different ways of connecting to their faith and their heritage. It's the same foundation I have for my queer identity, and likely the reason I found so much pride so comfortably when first coming out. I had a template for what it could look like, all the while knowing there's no one blueprint. My Jewish upbringing taught me that being queer wouldn't change the access I had to love and support. It provided me experience in exploring and redefining an identity so that I didn't feel as much pressure as I would have to find the right LGBTQ+ label for myself. My version of being queer and gay fits me, just as my version of being Jewish fits me. It taught me the importance of learning more about queer history and those who fought so I could live my truth so openly. It taught me to seek LGBTQ+ community because pride is so much more meaningful when it can be shared and uplifted. It also gave me practice in educating friends outside of my identity group in a compassionate way. There have been a few instances of straight friends referring to me as a lesbian, and when I explain to them why that term doesn't quite fit me, they don't always understand the nuances, but they have always respected it. And I'm so grateful for those in my communities who choose to see me as I see myself. My Jewish upbringing also taught me how to be unapologetically myself in the face of bigotry and ignorance. I was insulated within my immediate community growing up, but still dealt with swastikas etched into classroom desks, a student showing up to school on Halloween dressed as Hitler, and national and global news of anti-Semitic hate crimes. The pain I felt in response to the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh was the same pain I felt in response to the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. It's horrifying that any of us should ever know this pain, that anyone could hold such misinformed, unfair, and ugly beliefs about someone else's identity, someone else's personhood. And yet both my Jewish and queer histories emphasize the need to speak up, work collectively to protect each other, and persevere proudly. My work as a psychologist has provided me an opportunity to give back to my communities and help support others who may not have received it from their own friends and family. I've worked with a lot of LGBTQ+ young adults, and there are unfortunately two concerns that often come up: lack of familial acceptance and religious trauma. It's incredibly painful and frustrating to see the impact of families and communities abandoning or actively harming those who are simply trying to invite them into an honest and authentic way of living. It's also quite humbling. It's humbling because while I enjoy relating to my LGBTQ+ clients on a number of shared queer experiences, I'll never fully know firsthand what it feels like for my family or religious communities to shame me for being gay. However, through the insecurities and self-doubt I experienced for much of my childhood and adolescence, I can identify with the sense of feeling like an outsider. I'm not a stranger to questioning my sense of belonging. Anyone with historically marginalized identities knows that membership to a group or a space may not be given the way that it is for others. I lucked out that I had the gift of a strong community and overwhelming support, and it would be unfair of me to speak on how comfortable I feel as a gay Jew amongst my friends and family without giving credit to the people and the systems that facilitated that journey. I was so fortunate not just to grow up in a Reform Jewish community, but specifically my Reform Jewish community in Miami Beach. My friends, family, and community did everything they could to love me unconditionally, which is to say they treated me the same after coming out as they did before, with one exception. My mom now sends me every gay-affirming tweet that she sees. And I so wish that this were the experience for other LGBTQ+ folks, because when I was younger and unsure of myself, I was given room to figure it out. It didn't take big sweeping gestures, just messaging that I was loved no matter what. I never once heard bigoted or discriminatory language in my house that made me fear my parents would love me less. I was given free range to wear what felt comfortable and express myself the way I wanted to without ridicule or judgment. My parents may have helicoptered over my homework and responsibilities, but never over my definition of self. But Selam Elohim, if I was good enough in God's eyes, how could I not be enough in the eyes of those who cared for me? I was also surrounded by Jewish LGBTQ+ representation growing up. There was a visiting gay rabbi at Camp Coleman, who later worked at my temple for a time. One of the rabbis at my synagogue has gay and trans children. The synagogue employed trans and non-binary staff, and our Jewish community regularly advocated for LGBTQ+ rights at the local, state, and even federal levels. However, this is not often the norm, and certainly wasn't for so many Jews in the generations before me. It wasn't until 1965 that Reform Jewish leadership passed its first pro-LGB resolution, with a call to decriminalize homosexuality. In the subsequent decades, multiple Reform Jewish institutions have passed additional resolutions improving inclusion and affirmation of LGBTQ+ Jews, ordained out LGBTQ+ rabbis and cantors, and lobbied nationally for expanded gay and trans civil rights. But the Reform movement certainly has a long way to go to more consistently back up its resolutions and promises to LGBTQ+ communities, especially in regards to synagogues more consistently hiring trans clergy. No religious institution or community has it all right, and B'Tselem Elohim is not a magic pill that solved all of my insecurities, but it is reflective of the lessons and care I was given to those around me, by those around me, a safety net to question and explore and redefine. I came out later in life while I was completing my graduate program, but I came out when I was ready to. After I had the time and space to fully come to peace and understanding of my identity and how I wanted to share it with the world. I went from an insecure kid to a confident Jew to an insecure baby gay to the version of me standing here in front of you today. And I truly don't think I'd be the same person without the repeated messaging that I was enough and that I was wanted in my truest form. I'd like to end with a prayer that my friend Rabbi Lexi Erdheim shared with a group of Jewish young adults at a Pride-centered event last year. This is the Pride Shabbat blessing from an ally by Sarah Stock Mayo. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, who made us in your image, which knows no race nor gender, nor sexual identity or orientation. Blessed is the word pride, which is the consciousness of one's own dignity, to see oneself as completely whole and living, as they were created to be. Blessed is joy and pleasure in the physical, spiritual, emotional connection we feel in relationship to one another. Blessed is knowing and being and celebrating. Blessed is allyship, truly seeing someone just as they are and how they've told you they want to be seen. Blessed is allowing ourselves to be led. Blessed is allowing ourselves to follow. Blessed is the ability to transform, to allow for movement and possibility, to create and recreate who and what feels most authentic today and tomorrow and into the future, knowing that the possibilities are endless. Blessed are you, Adonai, who made me in your image, which knows no form. Blessed is limitlessness. Thank you.